Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara. Episode 12. Shri Mahaswami, the sage with eyes of light, the diary of a seeker of truth, Dr.Serge Demetrian. Dear devotees, now we shall listen to the second part of this divine book under the subtitle The Pilgrim's House. Madras, Friday, 16th January 1970. My most important spiritual experience up to now. For the last few days, the power of concentration has improved, and during the nights, sleep was refreshing. I had succeeded in keeping my inner sight fixed on the center between the eyebrows for several minutes in a row. There was a slight giddiness and headache, but of no importance. The feeling of a certain presence in the heart has been even and was gradually becoming stable. Today I woke up reinvigorated. I hurried to the temple and started vichara, which I practice after commencing with several Mahavakya. Although I could not identify them, there appeared round me a sense of multiple and intimate presences. There was a total loss of body consciousness with an almost complete disappearance of the thinking power, leaving just enough of a faint trace necessary to record the unnameable wonders. The world, all its forms, everything that one could imagine as existent, were diluted to the point where they were mere shades, almost transparent. Then the old I, incapable of will or thought, found itself shrunken to an essential idea that was floating in an all-encompassing ocean of felicity and light. How long this wonder lasted and how it came to its end, I could not say. The reappearance of the material solid body and of the ordinary thinking faculty was less frightening than in the past. This morning, between 6 and 8 a.m., these 2 hours of meditation passed like 2 minutes. There was a high probability it has been an Advaita Anubhava, a non-dual experience. During the entire morning, I walked with eyes half closed, carrying objectively, it seemed, a lump of brilliant gold in my heart. Madras, 29th January 1970. The mind acts on its fancy. The Brahman as Jivatman accepts that it will be dragged and cheated by the illusion of the world and thereby will acquire enemies. The quantity of misery the mind can store is immense, but from where did it accumulate so much? Bombay, Sunday, 15th February 1970. Elephanta. I am in transit through Bombay on my way to Paris to participate at a seminar organized by the UNESCO. The Elephanta cave is fantastic. Mahesh Trimurti Shiva is the most beautiful carving I have ever seen. An iridescent light coming from another world impregnates the stone and transfigures it into some sort of evanescent cloud like grey silvery velvet. At the same time, the face of the central figure resembles that of Sri Mahaswami and that of certain Indian friends. I came nearer without shoes and touched it reverently. Other statuary groups on the island are also inspired, but in its perfection, the Mahesh Trimurti Shiva is unique. Kanchipuram, Thursday, 19th March 1970. Back in Kanchipuram, I stopped at the mutt where I had an appointment at 9 p.m. with the junior Shankaracharya. While I was waiting on the street before the main entrance of the mutt, I observed Sri Mahaswami coming in. He appeared to be an older person, rather under medium-sized, with a short white beard, meager, energetic, and slightly leaning forward. However, it is impossible not to feel that he is someone. Children stand in his way and he bluntly waved them away before the assistant who accompanied him could intervene and clear the passage. After 10 minutes, I hear the noise of drums and flutes. The deities of the Ekamranatheshwara temple arrive in procession on a high festive chariot. Shiva and Parvati appear covered with jewels and flowers. Their dresses are of silk woven with gold. A clear spiritual atmosphere surrounds the chariot as they stopped in front of the mutt. The junior Shankaracharya comes out and presents a tray holding a coconut and burning camphor, which is the traditional offering for the deities. To the strident sound of music and crackers, the procession, guarded by the police, moves on to tour the Raja Street. Suddenly, Sri Mahaswami comes out of the mutt. He exchanges a few words with one of the administrators in the full light of the hall where I was waiting. I can see him from very close quarters, half dressed with his cloth trussed over the knees, grasping his danda, a slight person of about 1 meter and 50. He could not have reached my shoulder. In the evening was a meeting with the junior Shankaracharya. The discussion was mostly about my thesis for the doctorate in philosophy. At the end, while blessing me, he wished for me spiritual and scientific fulfillment. Kanchipuram, Friday, 20th March 1970. A troubled night, but less so compared with the last visit to Kanchipuram. The darshan of Sri Mahaswami was to take place by 6:30 in the morning at the same chowdhury as on the 18th December 1969. When I had reached it, I was told that I would have to wait for 30 minutes. I stood in the narrow courtyard on the southeast side in front of the door of the main building. Through the open door, I could see the dark square hall with its low cell where the pilgrims would take shelter. I am prepared to wait. But suddenly I observed that in the interior people were moving rather briskly. Sri Mahaswami has already come. I quickly took off my shirt and arranged 3 apples and a garland of white flowers on a woven plate. Sri Mahaswami was patiently waiting for me behind the door, half open. I saw him at barely half a meter distance. Once I had finished preparing the plate, I laid it on the threshold. He immediately came nearer to the door entrance so that I could easily see him. In order to be nearer to him, I prostrated with difficulty on the 3 stairs, and then I came up and tried to gaze in his eyes. As compared with the previous night, he seemed to be a completely different person. He was almost without consistency, a luminous vapor barely keeping the form of the body. A few slow gestures, then he straightened himself and he immediately entered another world. After some time, he closed his eyes and his lips seemed to mutter inaudible words. For a split second, a lightning devoid of a precise form curled from his chest to my heart. Then he raised his right hand with the open palm towards me. Unlike last time, he did not avoid my look so much. I understood that the darshan had come to an end. He waited until I finished my prostration, took 2 or 3 steps back, the face towards me with his gentle movements of the head that seemed to convey, "Be in peace, do not fear, leave everything to me." He blessed me with the open hand as though giving assurance that it was he who takes upon himself my problems and worries. The darshan did not last more than 2 minutes. In front of him, it was impossible to think of anything of a transitory nature. Perhaps at the moment when I was prostrating there looked some subtle thoughts about Adi Shankara and Mahavakya, along with a surge of devotion towards Sri Mahaswami. A thought came to the surface. Will there be a further possibility to see him? This darshan has been less tiring compared with the last one. My general feeling was that if until now a force was establishing me on a rock solid stand, this time the same force lifted me above this foundation. The rest of the day was peaceful. The presence of Sri Mahaswami filled the atmosphere. Here, the climate is more compatible to me than in Madras, where I have difficulty with the high humidity due to the vicinity of the sea. In the afternoon, I searched for the temple Mukteshwara, who is Shiva, the god of all muktas, the liberated ones, and as well for an ordinary task of buying parched rice. I did not discover the temple, and the rice flakes were waiting for me in a stall adjacent to the hotel where I stayed. Towards the evening, although I felt drawn by an uncontrollable force to the Kamakshi temple, I went without much conviction. However, as I was nearing the temple, the minutes and then the seconds hammered away relentlessly with the exactness of a metronome. I felt as if I was walking on a moving pavement that led me inexorably to an unknown end. The instant I crossed the southeast gate to enter the temple's courtyard, the tail of a comet passed in front of me from right to left. I could not see anything, as if blinded by a luminous vapor that touched my face. There was a slight rush. While I was hearing nearby the voice of a woman uttering respectfully, "The Shankaracharya." Only then did I turn my head and saw Sri Mahaswami, slightly bent forward, accompanied by a single assistant, and moving quickly away along the side of a tall wall. I immediately started following him. It was the first time that I was able to follow him. He has chosen for this the temple of the great goddess Kamakshi. After approximately 100 meters, I was able to walk behind him at a respectful distance, but without losing either his image before my eyes nor the great word from my heart. Near the northwestern gate, I could also say my morning prayers. As he came out of the temple, I found myself walking behind him until the door of the chowltry, where I had seen him this morning. He entered and disappeared among the small cells on the sides of the obscure central hall. While leaving, I realized that he had replied to my unexpressed request to see him once again. Or perhaps he has created this desire in order to bring me before him. Indeed, out of the regular darshan, which was rather short this morning, he had acted in such a way that I could see him as if by chance 3 times more, twice before and once after. Kanchipuram, Monday, 6th April 1970. This morning, after coming from Madras, I had been told at the Shankara Mutt that Sri Mahaswami was at the chowltry, which is some 300 meters away, and so I walked there. After a while, I could sense that the spiritual atmosphere became very dense. In fact, I had felt it to some extent the moment I entered the town. Probably because I'm always thinking of Sri Mahaswami. I was invited to the same place as last time. the narrow courtyard in front of the entrance of the pilgrim's house on the southeast side of the building. As soon as I arrived, I could see Sri Mahaswami at the bottom of the murky central hall. Luckily, I had taken off my shirt earlier. I hastened to deposit the plate with fruits and a bilva leaf garland beyond the threshold inside the hall, and I prostrated in the same uncomfortable position on the staircase itself with its thick wooden door frame. Meanwhile, he had come quite near to the front of the open door. I immediately stood up, searching for his eyes. I desperately clung to them, trying to open myself as much as possible. I could utter in my mind but a single great word of those I knew, insistently, while concentrating in the heart. Sri Mahaswami looked several times straight into my eyes. In between, he turned his head sideways. Then he closed his eyelids and I saw the movement of the lips. From his gestures of gentle pacification and separation, I understood the darshan had come to an end. Do not fear. Be confident. I am here, he seemed to be saying, as he is so gentle and yet so powerful at the same time. I prostrated once again in a most difficult position, only in order to remain near to him. My forehead knocked forcefully with a dull sound on the wooden threshold, one of the special conditions of this darshan. To my surprise, I retired without any bruising. I remained standing outside near the entrance. Soon I observed that Sri Mahaswami made some large gestures in my direction. They were not addressed to me, but to the visitors who crowded behind. I drew myself up on the side of the door without leaving the place. I could still see him as he received several hurried namaskara from devotees along with plates of flowers and fruits accompanied of requests for blessings. I continuously gazed at him. I think I had received his look once or twice. One should be satisfied with what one gets. Later, there was a discussion with 3 young adults from Madras who were polite, cultivated, but without spiritual interest. As the talk turned towards the interior search, the effort, the asceticism, everything stopped. They seemed to think these are concerns that one should not take seriously, although we respect them. But they are not for us. In the afternoon, between 3 and 4 p.m., a splendid visit to the Sarvatirtha reservoir. Every step around it was as if paved with gold. I had almost the same feeling this very morning while heading from the mutt to the chowltree. The saintly enclosure where the Mahaswami often lives seemed to be invaded by light and ether. I visited his hut. The source of the ether was there. I bowed in front of it. Another hut, smaller, on the left side, was less bright. Perhaps he did not inhabit it. Devotees, let us close this episode and shall continue to listen to the second part of Sri Mahaswami, the sage with eyes of light, in the coming episode. Bowing at the holy feet of the Gurus. Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara. Jaya Jaya Shankara.